Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants of our discussion panel, I'm pleased to welcome you to our discussion today. We will be talking about the make or break decade, how to make the European building stock fit for 2030. First, I would like to extend a warm welcome to the members of our European Association Peer Europe and all members of IVPU, as well as all guests who are following our discussion via live stream. We are delighted to have so many guests from the European member states and Germany join us today. As we speak, a new federal government is forming in Germany. The parties involved have chosen the motto, "Daring More Progress" for their coalition agreement. In honor of the new coalition, a suitable headline for today's event could also be "Daring More Energy Efficiency and Innovation." Time is of the essence for European countries to change their economies to make them compatible with the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. This is particularly true for the building industry. In the building sector, the future already has begun. The building existing today or being constructed today will, for the most part, still exist in 2045 and beyond. Therefore, it is important that buildings from now on are planned and constructed in such a way that they are compatible with climate goals. To achieve this, it must be possible to build them climate neutrally without further fundamental conversions. The challenges in existing buildings are even bigger. Most of today's existing buildings were constructed at a time when energy was cheap and the consequences of global warming were not yet clear. Now you might think the main issue is to convert building heating systems to heating systems using renewable energies. And yes, in fact, in Germany and other European countries, only 16% of heat is generated with renewable energy today. This means energy consumption in building must be drastically reduced to meet climate targets. If we don't succeed in using energy more efficiently, the energy demand will continue to rise. So how can we ensure the progress made in expanding renewable energies is not cancelled out by higher energy demand? And how can we prevent heating buildings from becoming a luxury? The answer lies in energy efficiency, in a more efficient use of precious renewable energy. In the prevention of energy loss, not only in the winter, but also in protection against heat in the summer, a well-insulated building envelope ensures living and working spaces are comfortable during all seasons, thus not cooling down in the winter and not heating up during hot summers. As necessary as the increased use of renewable energies is on the one hand, it is, on the other hand, equally important to optimize the building envelope to limit energy losses. According to the new federal government, this should be done in a technology-open manner. The use of innovative materials and technologies should therefore be a priority in buildings. Innovation and openness to technology in energy modernization of the building envelope doesn't always mean thicker and heavier insulation layers. Rather, it means using materials as economically and efficiently as possible. High performance, lightweight, and durable insulation materials enable thin insulation layers and are the prerequisite for material and resource efficient construction. If we further aim for a circular economy in the building sector, insulation material must fulfill their function as long as possible. At the end of their service life, after 50, 80, or even more years, insulation materials should be easy to dismantle and recycle. As early as the planning and construction stages, care must be taken to ensure the individual layers of material can be separated by type when being dismantled to simplify recycling. If the individual component layers are only mechanically connected, for example by screws, the subsequent separation of the materials is easier, and the dismantled insulation materials can be recycled. Today, polyurethane functional materials can already be produced with a secondary raw material proportion of 90%. And furthermore, alternatively, non-fossil-based materials are increasingly being used to produce polyurethane raw materials. As you can see from these examples, our industry can make a significant contribution to optimize the building stock in terms of climate protection and recycle management through innovative, high performance and recyclable products. Therefore, I'm very pleased that we have the opportunity today to talk about innovations with representatives from science, politics, and the housing industry, and about what it takes to make the European building stock fit for the future. I now would like to hand over to today's moderator, Claudia Bechstein, who will lead us through the discussion, and I'm looking forward to an exciting discussion on the podium. I invite you all to join the question and answer session following the discussion via chat. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Hutter, for your opening speech. And of course, I'm also looking forward to dive deeper into those topics later at our talk. A very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our conference organized by PU Europe and IVPU. You just heard it, the make or break decade. How to make the European building stock fit for 2030 is our head topic today. At this point, we'd like to thank you so much for your participation, and it's a pleasure to welcome you virtually at your desk. I also would like to take the chance to introduce myself quick. As you heard, my name is Claudia Bechstein, and I will be your moderator for the next 1.5 hours. Together, we are discussing important topics regarding to the European building stock, sustainability issues, and future visions of innovations. Before we start, let me give you a short overview about what's going on today. So, after we just heard Dr. Hutter, IVPU President, we are very much looking forward to welcoming Berthold Göke from the Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety. We will then continue with a scientific keynote of Dr. Sybil Stoiver from the Buildings Performance Institute Europe, followed by a case study. We will end the first part with short opening statements by our panel participants. And right after that, we will be heading into the highlight of our event, our discussion for about 30 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. At our Q&As, our experts will answer your questions. So you can send them by using the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have a question to a specific person, please write the name right after your question, and this way we know who to ask. I'm very much looking forward to a lively and interactive discussion with all of you together. All right, so then I would suggest let's start right away. It's a pleasure for us to welcome our next guest, Berthold Göke. Since July 2010, he is Deputy Director General of the Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety. In 1993, he worked as Desk Officer for Environment and Energy at the Permanent Representation of the Federal Republic of Germany to OECD and IEA in Paris. In July 1996, he transferred to the Federal Chancellery as Desk Officer for Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety and Sustainability Development and was head of division in 2001. Mr. Göke returned to the BMU as Deputy Director General for Renewable Energies in 2010, and he also was part of the German delegation at the Glasgow conference just 3 weeks ago, which was headed by the Secretary of State, Jochen Flassbart. Ladies and gentlemen, you can already see him and also hear him pretty soon. Please give him a big round of a virtual applause. A very warm welcome, Berthold Göke.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Bechstein. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for the kind invitation to this meeting. I only regret that I'm not able to greet you in person, but in almost 2 years we have grown accustomed to holding talks in virtual settings at a format that can be both successful and efficient. And efficiency is at the heart of today's topic: climate action and energy efficiency in the buildings sector. Climate action in the buildings sector is an enormous challenge for the new German government and indeed for all of us. The goal is a climate neutral building stock by 2045. The building sector is not yet on track, but the necessary socio-ecological transformation cannot be achieved without progress in the buildings sector. In my view, the coalition agreement presented to the public on the 24th of November demonstrates that the new German government has recognized this aspect and made climate action a priority task. In the building sector too, a range of concrete measures aim to significantly improve energy efficiency and advance the use of renewable energies, in particular to heat supply. There are clear links here to the European levels and the Fit for 55 package. Ladies and gentlemen, the coalition agreement envisages removing many of the much discussed obstacles to the necessary energy renovation wave in order to drive forward the transition to renewable heat. These obstacles include the shortage of skilled workers, the investor-user dilemma, and the current lack of an adequate and systematic survey and monitoring of energy consumption and the emission reductions achieved by investments. The new German government is prepared to introduce regulatory instruments as experts have long been calling for. For example, more stringent legal minimum requirements to new buildings have been announced for 2025, which match the ambitious standards of the Efficiency House 40. Also envisaged is a minimum renewable energy share of 65% for newly installed heating systems, for all newly installed heating systems. Renovation roadmaps will be widely and consistently used. They will be free of charge for common hold associations and for building purchases. While some of the details still need to be fleshed out, these measures represent a genuinely radical departure from the status quo. If we consistently implement these changes, we will turn the tide in the buildings sector. Moreover, climate adaptation, resource conservation, and the circular economy will be stepped up. In future, as embodied energy involved in the manufacture of construction product must also be calculated and considered. This is an important step towards balancing the environmental impact of buildings over more of their entire life cycle. The building industry is, after all, one of the most material-intensive sectors. Closing the material cycles of construction products strengthens our economy for the longer term. At the same time, demand for climate-friendly construction materials can create vital incentives for decarbonizing energy-intensive primary industries such as the cement and the chemicals industry. The use of biomass in energy and heat generation also needs to be addressed in the government's planned sustainable biomass strategy. This includes ensuring long-term availability as well as maintaining the natural carbon sink function. In the building sector, however, biomass is also used as a material. Straw for insulation, for instance, or wood for the constructions of buildings. There is potential to be harnessed here. Material use is clearly to be preferred over use as an energy source. The new German government has also set important overarching goals, such as establishing a hydrogen industry and adding a new dimension to the expansion of renewables. By 2030, 50% of heat generation is to be climate neutral. For comparison, in 2020, German Environment Agency figures showed the share of renewable heat was just over 15 or 16%, as Mr. Ute just mentioned. This brings home once again the extent of the challenges facing us. Introducing a nationwide municipal heat plan and expanding heat networks will help achieve the 50% goal. At the same time, we have continuity. I refer especially to the binding framework laid down for all sectors in the revised Federal Climate Change Act, the carbon pricing instrument introduced for heating and transport fuels in the Fuel Emission Allowance Trading Act, and the harmonized and enhanced funding of energy efficient buildings, including tax incentives. Ladies and gentlemen, for the building stock, investments in efficiency are especially important. Firstly, as door openers for the transition to renewable heating, and secondly, because lower energy consumption ensures that we can sustainably cover the remaining energy requirement from renewables and keep the costs affordable for the long term. We should remember that at present, the operation of buildings alone accounts for around 35% of Germany's energy consumption. Given this situation, discussions on the role of energy efficiency will inevitably continue. I firmly believe that to move forward, we need close and fair dialogue with all stakeholders. In addition, we must dismantle misplaced incentives such as climate harmful subsidies and include the costs of damage from CO2 emissions in economic viability analysis. The coalition agreement sets out approaches in this area too. We need to stress even more clearly that investing in climate action is an investment in our future, and one that also saves us the costs for future damages arising from climate change. The coalition partners are stepping up the pace. The goal is to launch the measures needed by the end of 2022 in the form of an immediate climate action program, including all necessary laws and initiatives. This, too, is an important and positive announcement. The faster we can reduce emissions, the closer we come to the 1.5-degree target. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package emphasize the urgent need for changes in climate policy. Germany, too, can benefit from the Commission's planned measures, including those to support a European renovation wave. Alongside future-proof requirements for new buildings, it is clear, at least to experts, that combating climate change especially calls for an energy renovation wave in the building stock. It is in the existing stock that the climate race will be won in the building sector. This means that we must increase the rate of modernization. At present, only a very small share of the 21 million buildings in Germany already conform to climate neutrality standards. Even if the new European greenhouse gas reduction target in the Fit for 55 package already largely corresponds to Germany's requirements under the revised Federal Climate Change Act, including those for the LULUCF sector, it is likely that Germany will have to raise its current energy efficiency targets for 2030 and underpin them with further measures. This is because the European Commission has raised the EU-wide target in the Energy Efficiency Directive. In addition, the Commission proposal for amending the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive has been announced for mid-December this year. The EPBD will be a key instrument for implementing the European Renovation Wave. In its coalition agreement, the new German government has indicated that it will back the Commission proposals for the building sector. Ladies and gentlemen, all this bolsters my conviction that we will advance climate action in the building sector in the coming years. To conclude, I would like to turn to you as representatives of businesses in the energy efficiency sector, for good reason. Firstly, energy efficiency policy still needs your support and your field-tested ideas. Secondly, I would like to thank all those facilitating climate and environmental projects in their companies and assure them of our support. Ultimately, successful climate action must be implemented first and foremost by you and in your companies. Policymakers can only create the framework. I'm thinking in particular of low emission or zero emission products and processes. Increased demand for these helps decarbonize primary industries such as the cement and chemical sectors. Recycling and circular management of construction materials also have a central role in climate action and environmental protection. I'm delighted that as manufacturers of polyurethane products, you have already taken innovative steps and are researching further options. Such action is key to ensuring that business thrives in the long term. Together, let us tackle challenges ahead constructively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bertolt Göke, for your statements and insights in today's topic. And I have right away a question for you. You mentioned minimum energy requirements for buildings. Do you expect the new government to implement MEPS at the next legislative period?
Well, yes, I really think so, that we will have such an implementation in the course of this next period.
All right. Thank you so much again for your participation. We know you have a very busy schedule, and it was such a pleasure for us to have you here at our conference today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as we are coming closer to our panel discussion, we'd like to dive a little bit deeper into scientific issues. It's a pleasure for us to welcoming our next guest, Dr. Sybil Stoiver, Head of Buildings Performance Institute Europe. And she will take us on a journey on how to achieve climate neutrality and fast approaching 2030 climate targets with accelerating greenhouse gas emission reduction. The building sector can be a central pillar of this effort and can make a significant contribution to those targets. As head of BPIE's Berlin office, Dr. Stoiver is responsible for research activities on climate protection in the building sector in Germany. The team in Berlin is providing information on current European research and policy developments and engages in national debates on climate protection in the building sector. She has also been working on sustainable energy transitions and the politics of energy efficiency for more than a decade. Dr. Stoiver also has worked for the Environmental Policy Research Center at Freie University in Berlin, the German Advisory Council on Environment, and the German Council for Sustainable Development. Thank you so much for joining our conference today. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Sybil Stoiver.
Yes, thanks a lot for your kind introduction. I will share my screen in a minute. And I hope that you can see that now in a presentation mode. Thanks again and good afternoon. Why is it so important to step activities to renovate the European building sector now, and how can that be achieved? Bertolt Göke already gave a couple of ideas of how the German government will achieve that, and this is also what I will talk about a bit more in the context of the European framework, and on top, this is also what we're doing research in. So we are a European non-profit think tank based in Brussels and in Berlin. We do give policy advice how to improve the energy performance of buildings and improve climate protection in the building sector, supported by independent research. The building sector is an important emitter of CO2 emissions. More than a third of the CO2 emissions can be allocated to the operational carbon emissions in the building sector. And the EU answered to that big emitting challenge by increasing not only the overall greenhouse gas emission target for 2030 to reduce minus 555% for the whole European economy, but also says in the renovation wave that this would mean a reduction of greenhouse gases in the building sector of minus 60% until 2030. Our analysis confirmed the necessity to reduce carbon emissions by 2030 by 60%. However, we think that other than the Commission, who says that the renovation rate needs to be doubled up to 2% annual, we actually need to step up even further and start action as soon as possible here, because we would need an average renovation rate of deep renovation between 2015 and 2030 of at least 3% per year. This is our modeling exercise showing different paths, and the green line would get us to the decarbonization of the European building sector and being in line with the minus 60% target, and is accompanied with an ambitious policy scenario and the acceleration of the renovation rate. If we look into what is happening in reality, we don't see deep renovation at any close of this rate, really. We have currently European-wide a deep renovation rate of 0.2%, and the annual investments amount to 43 billion euros, but they would actually need to be 243 billion euros in order to be in line with the target. And looking into the share of the investment that is spent on deep renovation, really, we need to step up that considerably, since we would need 70% of all renovations to be deep. In order to get to the targets you've heard, we need both the renovation and renewable energy, and this is what the energy efficiency first principle says, and that is what also the European Commission proposes to introduce really more as a more concrete guiding principle within the Energy Efficiency Directive, which has been published as a proposal version in this summer. And basically, energy efficiency first would give priority to demand-side resources whenever they are more cost-effective from a societal perspective than investments in infrastructure for planning and policy objectives. We are doing carrying out a research project on how to implement energy efficiency first, and I'll just give you one quick example here. For energy efficiency first at the policy level, this is an example from Ireland, heat pump grant. It's where the incentive is only provided if the minimum energy performance of the building envelope is met first. So this would allow a right sizing of the heating system and give positive impacts on the whole energy system. Mr. Hutter was talking about the precious renewable energy sources, and this is what it's all about. On the right-hand side, you would see an oversized system which would not correspond to the energy efficiency first principle. The good message is that we do have an open policy window now. You've heard we're waiting for EPBD recast proposal by the European Commission next week. While there are leaked versions out already, I'm not going to talk about it because I still consider them as working versions. I think what is clear, what the main discussions points are, and I will dive into a little bit more detail in a second. What I also would like to do with flagging 2023 and 2024, the plans for the renovation wave, they announced that actually the Commission will look deeper into what is important beyond the operational energy. It's important to better regulate and take account of embodied carbon and look at the whole life cycle of the building, and to look into material, the building construction materials more. We expect a proposal for the introduction of the digital building logbook aligned with the building renovation passports also in 2023. What you see now, and I'm not going to go in very detail through all these aspects, but this is what we consider the necessary ecosystem of a policy mix in order to get us to the decarbonization of the building stock. And it's pretty much in line with what the renovation wave says, even though we may have a kind of different interpretation of some of the aspects. I would like to highlight mainly that it's first of all important to make sure that the objectives for the building sector are in line, and the standards for new buildings are in line with the decarbonization targets. So we see that there is an importance to further develop the zero energy building standards for new building, which is currently existing, towards a net zero carbon emission standard. And in the midterm, that would even mean to impute embodied carbon in this standard. In our view, we expect the Commission to come up with a proposal of further developing NZEBs. So it will be interesting to see next week what will be in the proposal. The other point, and there was already a question about this instrument, is the introduction of minimum performance standards for the existing building stock. And this is highly debated at the European level. And I will talk a little bit more about this in a second. And the last important point that I would like to stress is the CO2 price, which we consider to have an important leveraging effect to make the policy mix more effective and cost efficient. However, it's not sufficient and not necessarily in line with the energy efficiency first principle, and certainly needs additional measures in order to make sure that also the building envelope can be decarbonized. I've announced the minimum performance standard for existing buildings. What is currently discussed at the EU level is to possibly require member states to, or the buildings stock of their member states to comply with a certain class of with the energy performance certificates. So similar to schemes that have been established in, for example, England and Wales, and also in France in the residential sector. It says that by a certain date, in England, it's since 2019, the buildings that are rented out newly have to comply with a minimum energy performance certificate of a standard E. And the Netherlands have introduced a similar scheme for office buildings, but there are also other designs conceivable. For example, the Brussels region in Belgium has introduced a mandatory implementation of planned measures, so following a renovation roadmap. And in France, there's also a scheme of reducing energy consumption compared to a reference year, and this has been proved by annual reports about real energy consumption. So it's quite different schemes, but they all would be subsumed under minimum performance standards for existing buildings. And the last point that I would like to highlight, and which has been mentioned also a bit earlier already, is that we would need to further look into embodied carbon emissions. We have here a picture that sees compares the operational emissions that occur during the lifetime of a building compared with the embodied emissions, which are especially high in the beginning and at the planning and then construction phase, and in the end of the life of a building. And the more ambitious or more efficient our building stock becomes, the more relevant becomes the embodied carbon. And the Commission has announced that they will become more active here, developing a roadmap, further developing the benchmarking system here. And there are a couple of member states who have already progressed here. This is just an example from Denmark, but there's also examples from Sweden, France, on how to regulate greenhouse gas emissions along the entire life cycle. So this is the case for Denmark, which is just currently under preparation. And we see here whole life carbon limits expressed in kilograms CO2 per square meter in year, based on a mandatory and a voluntary threshold, and then those converge a little bit over time. To sum up, I think that we're currently in a make or break decade, and the EPBD is a great opportunity to take building renovation to the next level, both in terms of accelerating action, in terms of deepening renovation activities, increasing the ambition level, but also increasing the scope of the directive towards carbon emissions and prospectively to include embodied carbon even, and stepping up existing legislation and initiating new policy instruments and steering tools, therefore. And also, I didn't talk about energy performance certificates, but I think it's a great chance also to mainstream information provisions, to make them comparable across member states, increase data availability on the European building stock, and to strengthen financial incentives for deep renovations. And this is where I stop. And I'm very much looking forward to a great panel discussion.
So, Dr. Stoiver, thank you very much for your keynote and presentation. As we have to move on with our next speaker, we do not have time for Q&A with you right now, but it would be absolutely awesome if you could stay in our chat for any incoming questions, if possible, also later for the Q&As. Thank you very much. All right, so now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead with a case study. What is it about? I will give you a sneak peek. How can urban planners and municipalities create affordable housing and still make their contribution to climate neutrality? Therefore, we will welcome again Dr. Hute, and he presents die Stadtquartier 2050, a climate-neutral residential quarter in the town Überlingen, which is seen as a lighthouse project. I don't want to reveal too much to you, but as mentioned before, the project includes both new buildings and the renovation of existing buildings. All right, so now let's hear more about it. Dr. Hute, welcome back. We are very excited, and I'm handing over to you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bechstein, for this kind introduction. I have shared the presentation. I hope you can see that. So I'm very happy to give you a brief introduction and a brief overview of a case study, which is a reference model for energy efficient, socially balanced and affordable housing construction. The flagship project is located in a city quarter in South Germany, and is motivated and supported by the German government, specifically by the Federal Ministry for Education and Research and by the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. So as a starting position, the overall awareness from these federal ministries was that the building sector is absolutely crucial to meet our overall climate targets. And as Mr. Görke explained at the beginning of his speech, building sector is not yet on track to meet overall climate targets. Because if we have a closer look to our cities, then we can recognize that almost 75% of our overall population lives in cities, and the building sector in total consumes around 40% of the total energy supply. So to renovate and to modernize the building sector is absolutely key to meet the climate targets. But what we also have heard from our previous speeches is that it is a huge challenge to modernize the existing buildings, to make them climate, or to bring them up on a climate neutral level. And so the ministries were looking for examples, for demonstration projects, which can serve as an example for other cities, for bringing up climate neutral housing. And another very important target was the question, how can we transform urban districts to be energy efficient, climate neutral, and very important with social balance through affordable housing? Let's have a closer look to this specific project in southern Germany. So the approach in this project was that there is an existing residential quarter. You can see that on the picture on the left-hand side, with around about 10 buildings and 240 apartments. So these buildings are from the late 60s and early 70 years. And the target is to bring them up on a KfW efficiency house level 55. In addition, in this case, it is there is a new quarter being built with 14 new buildings directly next to the existing quarter one. 14 new buildings with 180 apartments. Target is KfW efficiency house 40 plus level. And overall, the question is, how can we bring the existing and the new quarters into a social balance and create an identity neighborhood unit? And what was also very important is, how can we achieve a climate neutral energy level for both quarters and create affordable housing level at the same time? I just want to highlight some major characteristics in this project, some very important features. So one very important part of the solution was concentrating on renewable energy supply only, which is based on 3 points, which is a heating plant in the region, a regional district heating plant based on wood chips from local forestry only, and addition with a central solar heat unit for both quarters and photovoltaics on all roofs. Another important characteristic in this quarter is concentrate on low-tech building envelope. As we have heard also from Dr. Stoiver, the energy efficiency first principle must be our overall guiding. So we have, in this project, we have a very high efficiency construction used to reduce the energy consumption on the lowest possible level. And the overall construction is optimized to avoid any thermal breaches. And this was enabled by highly efficient insulation. In these constructions, there were polyurethane insulations used for the entire building envelope. And this has also the advantage that because with polyurethane, you have the possibility to create very thin constructions, we have a gain of more living space inside the apartments. In this case study, in this project, over all the 14 new buildings, there was a gain of around about 214 additional square meters living space, just because of very thin and optimized constructions using PU. And another very major requirement from the government for this case study was to concentrate on social balanced and affordable living. And this was reached by an overall efficiency in consuming only the efficient resources. So they have a rental fee level which is 10% below the regional average. And this is a really remarkable success, that in a very expensive area, the rental fee can be kept 10% below the regional average. But there's also some other very innovative features in this project. For example, the Fraunhofer Research Institute for Information Technology developed a specific smartphone app for older residents to improve their energy-saving behavior and to help all residents in this quarter to change their behavior in a direction to reduce their overall energy consumption. The app suggests the saving potentials and provides also benefits for people and for residents who consume energy below the average of the overall quarter. So, coming to a quick conclusion to this project. As part of this case study, the people, the architects, and the investors, which is a cooperative neighborhood housing company, they can prove that the climate neutral energy standard, a social balanced living, and affordable housing is possible and doesn't have to be a contradiction. And polyurethane insulation material is a very suitable contributor to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hutter, for your insights in Stadtquartier 2050. Indeed, a very interesting and promising project. Well, to kick off our panel discussion, we will be now hearing short opening statements to give you an inspiration about our main topics today. You can participate in our discussion by sending us your questions, and we will talk about it right in our Q&A session after the panel. Okay, so we are now pleased to introduce our representatives from science, politics, and the housing industry. And our first expert is Katja Naumann. She worked at the permanent representation of the Federal Republic of Germany in Brussels and as national expert at the European Commission in the field of energy. Since 2009, she is head of unit in the energy department and since February 2020, sub-department head for heat and efficiency in buildings and research at the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. It's a pleasure for us to welcome you to our conference today. A very warm welcome, Katja Naumann. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the warm welcome. Dear Mr. Hutter, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to discuss current climate and energy policy developments at European level and the implications for Germany with you. Let me start first with the European perspective. The ambitious goals of the Green Deal require an accelerated energy transition in the European and German building sector. The renovation wave plays an extraordinary role as a part of the Green Deal. Therefore, we very much welcome the fact that the European Commission aims to increase the energy efficiency of buildings and promotes climate protection consistently. With the renovation wave, the Commission is pursuing a holistic approach that includes not only economic and ecological aspects, but also the social dimension. The revision of the different directives in the Fit for 55 package are playing a central part of the process. With these directives, the EU is setting the necessary framework conditions in Europe for the heating and building sectors, among, of course, other things. And as was already mentioned in the former statements, we await the EPBD soon. In the directives, we need a consistent alignment of the EU targets for renewable energies and energy efficiency with the new EU climate target for 2030 in order to pave the way for climate neutrality in Europe by 2050. At the national level, let me come now to have a look on it. Germany has a twofold requirements to ensure economic energy use, but also general efficiency for new buildings. So in our regulatory requirements, we have one on the primary energy consumption and a further one on the building envelope. Those requirements shall be further developed in the future, shall be refined, and now also the question of CO2 emissions shall be included while still considering the efficiency of the envelope. Although Germany has made a lot of progress in the building sector during the last years, Germany must increase its efforts, as already Bertolt Gürke mentioned. With the coalition agreement, the main course for the new legislature has been set. The coalition announced an immediate climate protection program that includes measures for the housing sector. A central component of this is the upcoming amendment of the Building Energy Act, as the GEG we call it, where we will implement a set of new requirements for buildings. But how to do this in the future? How is the reality to increase our aims? In order to master all those challenges in existing buildings, we would like to advance the serial renovation. The Energiesprong initiative of our neighbors has given a good example how this could be realized. This offers, in our view, several advantages. Energy efficient refurbishment is one step, minimizing the on-site effort. We are now facing an important point in the development of the market, getting past the pilot phase. With the funding guideline and the Energiesprong team, we're supporting the market. In order to further increase the renovation rate, we have to create further instruments and market incentives apart from the Energiesprong concept. These are just some of the points that we see ahead of us in the upcoming decade, and I look forward to discussing it with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katja Neumann. And we continue with the second statement and our next expert. Ingo Hübner is Managing Director at Vonovia Modernisierung before he was Director of Business Operations, Vonovia Technischer Service. And until 2010, he was RE Lead Development Manager at H. Siebentopf. Vonovia is one of the leading European housing companies with housing portfolios in Germany, Austria, and Sweden. A special feature of Vonovia is that the in-house organization technical service plans and carries out modernizations partly itself and also with partners. In this capacity, Mr. Hübner is very familiar with both the commercial and the technical aspects of deep renovation. What strategy is Vonovia pursuing to make its housing stock climate ready? I hope we are getting an answer. Mr. Hübner, we are looking forward to hearing your statement. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and a warm welcome. I brought us a short presentation of what we're doing. I hope you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. I switched to another mode, so I think it's bigger for you to see that. Let me start to introduce Vonovia, because we are a leading German housing company. We manage a portfolio of around 350,000 apartments, almost in all attractive cities and regions in Germany. This is supplemented by a portfolio of around 22,000 apartments in Austria and 38 apartments in Sweden. More than 1 million customers are at home with us, which puts us in the heart of social responsibility. We are also responsible and attractive employer for our nearly over 10,000 employees. Our business model is also geared to the long term and the future. We are already working intensively on our portfolio to reduce carbon dioxide emissions through energy efficient refurbishment and the increased use of renewable energies. It's particularly important to us that modernization remains affordable for tenants. We also contribute to affordable new construction with around 2,000 apartments per year. The conversion of around 10,000 apartments in Germany to make them suitable for senior citizens is also of particular importance, because we want our tenants to be able to live in their apartments for a long time. Our sustainable business model is deeply rooted in the ESG. We are particularly proud to be one of the first real estate companies to define a binding climate path that shows how we intend to achieve a climate neutral portfolio by 2050. We have already increased our energy efficiency in recent years with very effective modernization programs that have resulted in a modernization rate of around 3%. In 2019, we started to systematically install PV systems on our buildings and will certainly continue and expand this activity in the future. We are also investing in innovations for climate-friendly residential neighborhoods we call Quartiere and new ways of using renewable energies. The social pillar is very important to us. The neighborhood, the Quartier, is at the center of our activities. We want to develop our neighborhoods in such a way that our tenants feel at home. To this end, we develop infrastructure that is tailored to the individual situation of each neighborhood and geared to the needs of our tenants. We adapt our apartments to people's need and living conditions. For example, we are modernizing around 30% of our newly rented apartments to make them suitable for senior citizens. With these and many other measures, we are able to improve customer satisfaction by more than 8% in 2020, and we are working to continue on this path. For us at Vonovia, transparent and reliable governance is crucial. Vonovia has a two-tier supervisory board system in which the management and supervision of the company are strictly separated. Vonovia is subject to the SE regulation, the German Stock Corporation Act. The Articles of Association in Vonovia fully complies with the German Corporate Governance Code. We have established a strong, sustainable organization with clear responsibilities and involving various central and operational functions. So let's have a look on our climate path. We have developed our own climate pathway along which we must decarbonize our portfolio by 2050. Due to the amendment of the Climate Protection Act, we have to move forward by 5 years to 2045 and have set clear and measurable interim targets. Our analysis has shown that the current refurbishment of our portfolio, including increasing refurbishment depth, is not sufficient to achieve the climate target. A combination of higher energy efficiency, an increased share of renewable energies, and the further development of innovative technologies for decentralized energy supply in the neighborhood is required. As you see in the different colors, the base case, the standard scenario, in recent years, we have already increased our energy efficiency with very effective modernization programs. We are currently refurbishing around 3% of our buildings every year. As a result, we have managed to reduce energy consumption by 45% compared to before the refurbishment. The hybrid case, that means we achieve further reduction potential by increasing the depth of refurbishment, higher energy efficiency of the building envelope, and by optimizing the heating systems with modern gas condensing boilers combined with solar thermal systems or hybrid heating systems. But even this is not enough to achieve the climate targets. As you see on the green line, our commitment, the ultimately achieve a climate neutral scenario, innovations are essential. We have heard about the Energiesprong, and I will go on that in the following slides. The focus must be therefore on the increased use of renewable energies, the fuel switch, and decentralized supply in the neighborhood. Further efficiency potentials can be leveraged through targeted networking of the electricity, heat, and transport sectors, the so-called sector coupling. For this, not everything is ready yet, and research and innovation are needed to achieve the climate turnaround. So how do we try to achieve that? We have existing technologies which are not, which will us not guide into the future. In addition to these existing technologies, we are focusing on innovations and research into CO2 neutral heat generation. In this context, neighborhoods are central components in our mobility, energy, and climate transformation. The focus here is on a decentralized energy supply in which energy is generated, stored, and consumed as autonomously as possible on site. As you see on the left, tomorrow's energy center, In Bochum-Weidmar, we are building the energy center of the future, a kind of glass technology center that will supply 80 apartments with energy. Various innovative technologies will be used, such as an electrolyzer to generate hydrogen from electricity, fuel cells or heat pumps, so that the buildings and households can be supplied by 60% decentrally generated carbon-free heat. Vonovia generates 25% of its electricity it needs on site through its own PV system on the roof of the buildings. On the right side, you see the Energiesprong we heard as well. This is a new type of serial renovation concept that stands for high living comfort, minimal renovation time, and an innovative financing model. With a digitized, rethought construction process, prefabricated facade and roof elements, and renewable energies such as PV, buildings are brought up to a net zero standard within a few weeks. Pallet heating system. Pallet heating system represent a particularly ecological and economical solution that is virtual climate neutral. Here we must already develop the initial concepts for pilot projects as well. And at least the hydrogen technology. We use our electricity from our own PV systems to generate green hydrogen. We store this on site for use in fuel cells. Finally, an energy management system ensures that the energy is available in the right place at the right time as electricity, heat, or for e-charging stations. We created a sustainable performance index and we actively manage through goals. We believe that the success of our company relies heavily on the performance and ESG aspects. This is why we created the Sustainability Performance Index, the SPI, which is our new KPI within our management model. It consists of 6 indicators from the 3-dimension E, S, and G. For example, the CO2 intensity of our building portfolio, the average primary energy demand of our new constructions, employee satisfaction, and the share of women in leadership positions. For all these indicators, we have set short, medium, and long-term targets. The last slide, I brought a report from practice where we used the PU insulation. This is a heritage listed district in Frankfurt, where we renovate 24 buildings with around 19,000 square meters of a residential space. And because of that specific requirements for the preservation of listed buildings, we can only use an insulation with a thickness that is limited of 10 centimeters. So this is that we can use these PU systems without sorry. In this case, we cannot use the EPS insulation because of the thickness, which is compared to the PU system nearly the double. So that we decided to go to the PU insulation. And this was the end of my So let me see how to get out here. Sorry.
So, can I take over again?
Yeah, please take over.
Great, I do that. So thank you very much, Mr. Hübner, and we definitely will discuss your statement in just a few minutes. And our last topic introduction is held by Robert Gamfer, who's responsible for energy, climate, and environmental policy at the European Commission's representation in Germany. He's an economist and political scientist and holds a PhD from ETH Zurich, where he did research on international climate policy and politics. Since joining the European Commission in 2015, he has worked in innovation policy analysis, EU economic policy planning, and coordinating the EU's participation in G7 and G20. Mr. Gamfer, we unfortunately, as far as I'm informed, can't see you today because of technical reasons, but I hope, and we're very much looking forward to hear what you have to say. A very well welcome to you. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you absolutely perfectly.
Very good.
Then I'm handing over.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for the invitation, Mr. Hute, of course. Yes, unfortunately, none of my end devices works very well with our video conference application today, so I'm afraid you'll have to content yourself with only hearing my voice, but I hope it'll work nevertheless. So yeah, I was asked to give a bit of an overview of the Fit for 55 package that the Commission presented back in July this year. And well, now almost all of the preceding speakers already addressed elements of the package. So I'll, for the introductory statement, I'll just zoom a bit out and talk a bit more about the more high-level political aspects of it. And there, the first observation is, of course, that as monumental and complex as the Fit for 55 package may seem, it is meant to implement two relatively simply defined goals in the European climate law, as you know, and that is 30% emission reduction, 55% emission reduction by 2030 and carbon neutrality in the EU by 2050. And the fact that Europe was the first jurisdiction to enact such a climate law is not only of symbolic character, but it also means that this goal of carbon neutrality is not anymore at the whim of changing political developments and priorities when a new commission comes into office or after European Parliament elections and so on. It means that those goals are legally enshrined now and that can be recurred to, and we think this is very essential in providing planning and investment security for industry, yeah, for associations like yours, and also for households more in general when it comes to decisions about building renovation, for example. So, so this as a first very general observation. Now, as I said, the package is complex, and we believe it's a very delicately balanced mix of different types of policy instruments. And of course, one central element in it is the emissions trading system as a market-based mechanism. And as you know, the big change in the Fit for 55 proposal is that the Commission proposes to extend the emissions trading to the transport sector and to the building sector, so for heating and cooling. And this is, well, it's of course politically, especially in terms of social policy, quite a sensitive decision to make, but our analysis and our impact assessments really suggest that this is the most effective and efficient instrument to induce more emission reductions in the building sector. And we've all heard in the presentations before that this will be necessary, and it also has to be done at a relatively high speed. And of course, we see also some economic potential in those renovation wave actions which we are proposing and which is linked to that. Now, we have this this market-based mechanism at the center, but of course we flank it by support instruments and also by new standards and regulation. And among the support instruments, I'd just quickly like to mention, of course, the programs under the renovation wave, which were already discussed in a bit of detail and which will be mainly dispersed through the member states in the framework of this next generation EU COVID crisis recovery program. But of course, also in the Climate Social Fund, which the Commission proposes as an accompaniment to the buildings ETS. Also, this fund envisages not only direct social transfers to vulnerable households, but it also envisages, for example, supporting climate resilient and energy efficient renovations of buildings, which will also help make low-income households weather those changes in the green transformation and those initial upfront costs a bit better. And that it of course also means that there will be business opportunities and business potential in increasing the renovation speed. Then maybe before I finish, two of the proposals on the regulatory side, which we see as a flanking measure to the building ETS. One is, at least partly, of course, is the Energy Efficiency Directive, or its revision, where the energy efficiency first principle will become mandatory to be included in planning processes and public investment decisions. And we also propose a yearly renovation rate for publicly owned buildings of 3% as part of an obligatory yearly energy efficiency target of 1.5% per member state. And we are very conscious that this is ambitious and not easy to achieve for many member states, but we believe it's necessary to speed up the development we need to reach the 2030 goal. And the other one that has already been discussed in quite some detail by Sybil Stoiver is the Energy Performance for Buildings Directive, which indeed should come out next week on Wednesday. And of course, I cannot preempt a lot of the content now, but it's very likely that it will contain an obligation to renovate the worst performing buildings in energy efficiency terms from a certain point in time in the not so distant future. It will improve the usage of building passports significantly, and it will also make suggestions for so-called renovation and energy efficiency pathways. Maybe those three issues as a quick glimpse on this new directive. And now, of course, we realize that all these Fit for 55 proposals for the time being are just legislative suggestions, and it will take some time for member states and parliament to agree on them, and they might change somewhat before they are enacted. But we are actually quite confident that we can have a relatively speedy legislative process, and we won't have to.
Mr. Gamfer, I'm very sorry to interrupt you. We are running out a little bit of time. Could you please come to an end pretty quick? That would be absolutely awesome.
Yes, no problem. I was almost done. Yes.
Thank you very much.
So just the point. Yeah. So I think we won't have to sacrifice a lot of ambition, because we see the push from public opinion and also increasingly from industry. And that's what we find most encouraging, that the tone when you speak with company representatives has really changed from, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago. And most industry are really starting to embrace this transition and are actually going ahead, maybe sometimes even quite a bit faster than the political regulators. And that's why I'm very happy to see the interest from your association here today. And I'm looking forward to the discussion now. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your statements. And we also start right away with the first question to squeeze out a little bit time. So my first question goes to all participants of our panel. Dr. Stoiver has shown that deep renovation rates throughout Europe, including Germany, are far too low. And a renovation rate of 1% means that an existing building is fundamentally modernized only once in 100 years. An energy refurbishment rate of at least 3% is needed to be climate ready in 30 years. So my question to you all is, how can we achieve this goal? And I would like to start with Katja Neumann.
Yeah,
I think you have to, yeah.
Yes, and to unmute. No problem. Yes, the deep renovation is one of the subjects I think we have to discuss in the next month. We need climate-friendly renovation of the building stock and good new constructed buildings. This is one of the underlying or is the basis for all political instruments. Deep renovation means also, as Mrs. Stoiver has already mentioned, that we have very different target groups in the building stock and also different financial potential thereof. And this is why I think we have to see how we can differentiate between them and see how we can find measures that fits for all. So far, we have, for example, tried to establish renovation timetables to help owners which are not in the professional, perhaps as the big companies, to help them to take an integrated view on the necessary steps for their buildings. And we could think about elaborating this instrument further.
Thank you very much, Ms. Neumann. So, Mr. Gamfer, do you agree or you like to add anything? I hope you hear anything.
Yes, I fully agree. And yeah, maybe to stress again that in our view, the renovation aspect is really crucial in achieving that target, because our building stock is very durable, and it's very likely that we will be using at least 80% of the buildings we are using today still in 2050, when we are supposed to reach carbon neutrality. So this is really where we have to concentrate efforts, and I absolutely agree with what Katja Neumann already said. And just to add that, yeah, to achieve that, it's really important that we have this broad mix of policy instruments on the European and on the national level, because only by strong regulations, strong standards, and also substantial funding support, and funding support that is differentiated according to the different needs, can we really achieve such a really monumental effort within 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Hübner, your company has already committed to an average modernization rate of 3% per year. Do you expect support by the government in order to help you to meet this target?
We hope so. We hope so. But let us put in focus one other fact. That is that also other factors play a role in influencing the pace of the energy turnaround. And that means the availability of construction capacity and the market. We need suitable property selection without placing too much of burden to the tenants to still guarantee affordable rents. And this is really important. But the energy modernization will not be enough to achieve the energy turnaround. We must continue to work on innovative solutions. Among other things, we see serial refurbishment as a key to success, as well as electrification on the residential sector. So, yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick note to all of our participants. If you want to add something, or if you agree or do not agree, of course, you can just raise your virtual hand and give a comment to a statement that have been given. Okay, so my next question would go to Mr. Gamfer. Many participants who follow our discussion today come from other member states. Construction methods, building standards, climatic conditions, and deep renovations are very different in the European countries. Are there any concerns that unite all countries?
Yes, there are. Those challenges that we just talked about. These are pretty much the same for all European member states. You're of course right when you say that the actual market conditions and the actual characteristics of the building stock are quite highly differentiated from region to region. But I think the overarching problem, nevertheless, is to get enough investment as quickly as possible into this sector, and to support the necessary innovation, possible new technologies that we need to address those challenges. Maybe one thing where we can see a bit of divisions between European member states is when it comes to energy poverty, because this is really an issue that you have in the whole European Union, but in macroeconomic terms, it's much more severe in southern and eastern Europe, especially. And this, of course, strongly influences political considerations of governments. What you think you can, what you think your citizens can handle economically and are willing to accept politically. This is quite different across member states, and that reinforces the point on the importance of social cushioning of those measures. And since social policy is a national competence, there is not that much we can do at the EU level. The Social Climate Fund is a beginning, but member states will also have to do substantial work on that side on their own.
Thank you. So the next question would go to Katja Neumann. So Dr. Stoiver was referring to the minimum energy performance standards, which are likely to be part of the European Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Will the German government be supporting binding requirements at the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive regarding MEPS?
Yeah. This is one, I think, of the big questions also around the Buildings Directive. You have already heard Bertolt Göke and his answer to it. And I think we have, of course, first we would like to see the text of the Building Directive, and then definitely assume or develop our position on it. But if it's called MEPS or other requirements, I think anyway we will have to define a way how to reach our goals, and this is likely to be developed now in the next weeks. And also as regards the coalition agreement, you all I think know it, you have read it, and so we will, I think, adapt our instruments to it, and this might include also those ideas around Meps.
Thank you. Let's go ahead with another comparison and have the next question also for you. The Energy Performance of Building Directive requires nearly zero energy buildings. Corresponds the Efficiency House Standard, so the EH40, which shall become mandatory in Germany from 2025 on, to nearly zero energy buildings, which are meant by the EPBD.
You're asking me again, or?
Yes. Yeah, that was the next question for you. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, this is one of the questions. The KfW House 40. We will. Yes, it is foreseen that it should be done until 2025. 5, and yes, we will see how we define the way to it. We have our task as regards decarbonization as well as other sectors, and we have also different research studies underway at the moment, and we will this has already been done with a view to 2022. The coalition agreement also talks about the adaptation of the law already in 2022, and we will prepare it on the basis of the ongoing studies and reports. How the revised act is going to look like, it's difficult to say precisely at the moment, but we will take all those aspects into account by preparing our reform on it.
Mr. Hübner, according to the coalition agreement, the future German government is focusing on tailored and technology neutral measures, including optimization of the building envelope, technical systems for the generation and supply of renewable energy in buildings and district solutions. Do you agree, or is anything missing in your appointment and from your point of view?
Our analysis has shown that the current refurbishment of our portfolio, including increasing the depth of refurbishment, is not sufficient to achieve the climate target. What is needed is a combination of higher efficiency energy, an increased share of renewable energies, and the further development of innovative technologies for decentralized energy supply in the neighborhood. And that combined with less regulatory in power supply models for landlords, with eliminating grid fees and other costs to put this all together in a complex.
And what suggestions would you make to Katja Neumann on behalf of the future Federal Minister of Economics? Can funding programs be further developed so that they are targeted and be as effective as possible? So what would you focus on?
Well, I think achieving the CO2 neutrality requires major investments. This is important that this is clear to everyone is involved. Our scale and efficiency already go a long way, and we also take advantage of available subsidy programs. But for retailers and smaller landlords, these subsidies are even more important because they cannot be efficient as we are. And I already mentioned it, in addition to the right support of the financing side, regulatory changes are also needed. For example, when it comes to more attractive power supply models by eliminating grid fees and other costs.
Mr. Gamfer, I have the next question for you. So the coalition agreement states simply, we support the proposals of the EU Commission in the building sector Fit for 55. What can the new German government, once it's in office, do in concrete terms to help the Commission?
Well, yeah, we are of course very happy to read such a broad statement in the coalition agreement on our proposals, and at the same time we of course realize that there won't be support for any and every detail. That's completely clear. I think where the German government should focus on in the council, in the legislative discussions with other member states, is really on this transport and buildings emissions trading system. There are widely diverging views between member states, and there is a lot of concern or skepticism by some other member states. So this is really where Germany and an ambitious, in terms of energy and climate, an ambitious new government could make a big difference in the legislative process at EU level, and that of course also means broad support. It doesn't have to be on any technical detail for all those proposals that are connected to the buildings ETS. But maybe the biggest wish is a bit in analogy to the stated intentions of the coalition to speed up approval processes domestically is maybe to speed up the decision making and positioning process in the Council of the European Union. That would probably help a quick and ambitious implementation of the Fit for 55 proposals quite a lot.
Thank you. So we have a question from the chat that goes to Katja Neumann. Financing the necessary energy improvements to existing buildings will be very considerable. Who and how will this be paid for? And does the public understand these commitments? Does the public understand these commitments? That's the question.
Yes, I think we hope so. Yes, we must say that we have several support mechanisms. Perhaps one of the most known is the one we call BG. So this is for efficient buildings from the federal level. We have several also Länder which have also their programs to fund or to help funding for owners. And I would like also to mention the research projects we have around districts, as you already have, we have seen in the case study and also from Vonovia. And I think this is also could be a part of the key also to come on the path to climate neutrality, to have a look in larger districts and perhaps the central heating at the energy center, as you have already mentioned. And I think we would, from our point of view, this should be continued, and we hope that this will be possible now in the next weeks to have those financing mechanism for researchers, but also for the owners and for all of them who need support.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hübner, I have one more question for you. What role does the deep renovation play once to make the housing stock attractive to tenants and for the attractiveness to investors?
These are two questions. Let me divide this in two answers.
Yes.
To make the housing stock attractive to tenants, that we think that our tenants want to live in a modern, energetically renovated house and have a long-term secure housing perspective. At the same time, of course, the climate protection issue are to be implemented. Here it's very important that we find the right balance between the CO2 reduction, affordable rents, and an appropriate risk-adjusted return for our shareholders. All three goals are important, and we cannot sacrifice one to achieve the other. We are already well on our way and going beyond legal requirements. Among other things, we have adopted two important voluntary commitments that have guided our rent policy ever. Since the maximum increase of our modernization Vonovia is at €2, and the second thing is that we have introduced special protection for people aged 70. Let's have a look on the attractiveness to investors. We think that it's two sides of one medal. The ESG is becoming increasingly important for investors. What used to be a nice to have in the past is now a must have. And making housing affordable is our task vis-à-vis tenants and investors. We have to balance both stakeholders vis-à-vis the tenants and the investors. We are convinced that the success of our company depends to a large extent on performance in the area of ESG aspects, and this is why we created the SPI, as I've shown in the presentation.
All right. So we unfortunately are running out of time. So that's why I already did a mix between our panel question and also questions from the audience. At that point, we apologize that we can't take all of your really good questions. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, we slowly have to come to an end. And I also need to close our Q&A and panel now. Thank you all very much for your participation and our panel, and especially for your questions. And of course, thanks a lot to our experts for this very insightful talk today. The last 90 minutes have flown by quickly, and we have almost reached the end of our conference today. So let's all continue working together for a green and sustainable future. So what did we learn today, and what is the key message of our event? I'm very pleased handing over now again to Dr. Hutter for his final statement. Thank you very much for attending. Take care and goodbye from my side. And Dr. Hutter, I hope you're still in the line, and we all are welcoming you back, and we are very much looking forward for your final speech.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Bechstein. And I would also like to say thank you very much to all speakers and lecturers for this interesting discussions and messages. So when we look to the overall target, we still understand, and I think that was a very clear outcome of this discussion, that the building sector is not yet on track to meet the climate targets. So the biggest challenge is how we can speed up the modernization of the existing buildings. We have heard around this 3% modernization rate a year from our experts, and how can we do it to keep also the rents on an affordable level. So it's a tremendous amount of work which needs to be done, and we as an industry, as a whole European polyurethane industry, are ready to cooperate with the industry, with politics and with science to make this happen. So let's do it and get started and speed up. And for today, I would like to say again, thank you very much for your support. Thanks to all speakers. Thank you very much to Ms. Bechstein for this excellent moderation through this panel discussion. And my thanks are also going to the technical team from Mr. Lenz and the whole IVPU team led by Tobias Schellenberger, who has organized this panel discussion today. So, and thank you very much for all guests participating this meeting this afternoon. I do wish you all the best. Stay healthy, and yeah, hope to see you soon, and whatever you do, do it efficient. Thank you and bye-bye.